Tony. What's going on at United, mate? Talk to us.
Fucking shambles. That's about sums it up. Fucking shambles.
I had to kickstart the pod off just asking that question straight off the bat because, the United game's not for, what was the second last game of the round, so we're going to have to get into it a bit later, but I just had to ask that question. Campo, though, Spurs, mate. Again, we'll get into them, but you're flying. One game played, 4 goals scored.
Feels good being top of the league, I tell you.
Arsenal, your North London rivals, mate, they were top of the league for what? 12 hours, if that?
They start claiming they've been up there for a month when the fixtures got released because they start with A.
All right, well, that's enough of you two for now. Let's get into what the games were this round. And you can see there, Arsenal kickstarted off with that 2-0 win. Fulham, Liverpool, was a shock, really. Bournemouth, Villa, another shock there. We'll just fly through these. Newcastle, Spurs obviously getting a big win. Leeds, Chelsea, Brentford and Leicester drawing. Tony, United losing there. And City, obviously, that's the big one for me. HAALAND, of course. But that first one there, Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. Campo, you're a Spurs supporter, obviously. Talk to us about this result. It's expected, I suppose, the way Arsenal prepared, the way they recruited in the off-season.
Their preseason, they were phenomenal. They were smacking teams all over the place. And they started this season, as the preseason ended. They started the game well, but then in the second half, you saw Crystal Palace really grow into the game, have a few great chances, couldn't take them, and then a lucky deflected shot from Bukayo Saka ends up in the net. And when you've got the luck behind you, everything just falls your way. And I think that's what happened to Arsenal that game.
Yeah, before I continue on this, Campo, that background, mate, you're in the new pad, are you?
Mate, I'll tell you what, the podcast is paying. We're top of the league, so they're handing out free houses, I tell you.
My background still looks the same. I'm not seeing these the revenue coming in. Tony, yours is still the same as well.
Mate, I can't even buy a win for my team, so I'm not getting any of the revenue from the podcast. So,
as you said, Arsenal started well. They started bright, so I would have thought they should. Martinelli should have scored very, very early on. Fluffed his lines there, but then followed up with a goal not too long after. Gabriel Jesus looks like the signing they've needed. He looks like the Aubameyang of old, the one that they signed, and he was great to start with. But yeah, like you said, Palace grew into the game. And any other day, Arsenal, that took them to the 85th minute to get that second goal. So it could have finished 1-1. Could have finished 2-1 Palace if they weren't careful. And I think an Arsenal team, maybe last season at times, would have coughed up and they would have drawn this game or lost. But the stats, 10 shots for both teams, 2 on target for both teams. So it shows that Palace, that they're a fighting team and they won't go down without a fight. Tony, what were your thoughts on this one?
So Campo pretty much summed it up. Obviously, it went end to end. That second half was quite close, but ultimately Arsenal did the job. They got the 2 points, and although it was a terrible second half, you take those 2 points. 3 poins. Sorry, you take those 2 goals. You're still in a roll mode, mate. I'm still broken. It was a tough watch. I tweeted out actually on Thursday night after the Roosters have got their win, and I went, the Roosters have won their NRL game. Over to United to ruin my weekend, and over to United to ruin my weekend it was. So, good 2 goals for Arsenal, clean sheet and 3 points. Perfect start to Premier League football. Yeah,
that's it. I want to mention though, was his Anderson at the back for Palace? He was spraying long balls like there's no tomorrow. He's a good player. And if he has a strong season, there's no reason why he couldn't get picked up by a big club. United, you guys wanted to straight swap there, Maguire for Anderson. Take it, Tony.
Mate, I'll go play centre back, and I think most United fans would take that, but we'll get into that one a little bit later.
Yeah, sorry, I do want to actually mention another centre back though, just quickly. William Saliba. He's the one that Arsenal, they've been lacking. He's been at their club for 3 or 4 seasons now. He's just been on loan. He's just been, kicked out of the club a couple of seasons, but now he's finally there. And the praise for him after this game was crazy. Twitter was going over it. It's just he looks so comfortable on the ball, so strong. And again, if he has a top season, there's no reason why they can't push for top 4. It's funny because he actually shifted Ben White out to the right back, and then he got exposed by Wilfried Zaha. But yeah, strong start for him. And it's good to see because he was just loaned out for a while and just kind of shows that Arsenal ate their words a bit. But yeah, let's get into this one. Morty's not here, unfortunately, because this is we would love to rip into him and find out his thoughts even about this game. But it reads there, Fulham 2, Liverpool 2, and it started really well for Fulham. Both times really. They went up a goal each time. Talk to us, Campo, about this result.
Shock result. I think everyone thought this was going to be a comfortable 3-4-0 to Liverpool, but one team started with a lot of energy, fire, hunger, and it wasn't Liverpool for once. I was in shock that Liverpool were getting battered on the counter over and over again. Chance galore for Fulham. They couldn't take it. And then finally, Mitrovic, hats off to him. 3 goals his last Premier League campaign. He could have said, this is too hard, gone overseas. He went back to the Championship, dominated, and continued his form into the Prem. I've got so much respect for that man now.
Yeah. Tony, what are your thoughts on this one?
First of all, to all the Liverpool fans out there, Mitrovic has his double, so we'll get that one out there nice and early. But it's a tough one. Obviously, you want to give praise to Mitrovic. Obviously, he's got his 2 goals, but we did see what happened to Pukki last year. So I'm going to hold my talk on how good he's going to be in the Premier League until we've seen a 6 to 10 game window. Obviously, the benefit is the World Cup this year. Players are going to go away. Players are going to be fatigued. So I think he bends about 10 goals in. But if you look at a lineup in, let's say round 36, this is a game where Liverpool go, this could cost us the title. So big loss of 2 points for Liverpool, but a big point for Fulham.
Yeah, I'm seeing a few Liverpool fans already saying that. I mean, they say City getting 100 points easy. So this is already a title decider, first game of the season, which is just baffling to me because the title should never be won on the first day of the season, but it shows how strong City are. But yeah, Mitrovic, praise to him. 45 goals in his last 45 games. Obviously, Championship included, killed it. And it looks like he's taken that form into the Premier League. And yes, 3 goals was at last campaign in the Premier League, but the one before that, I believe it was 11, which is for a struggling Fulham team who I think went down at the time. I mean, it's all right. But I do think that if Fulham's going to score goals this year, it's going to be through him. He'll have to score 15 plus for them to stay up. But they played really well. They deserved a point at least out of this game, and they've got it. And I think it just kickstarts their season. I do think Liverpool came into this game probably too comfortable, thinking we're versing a promoted team. That's 3 points easy. There's probably 4 goals scored. But no, it took, I don't know if I'd say the wrong decision starting Núñez on the bench, because I think Morty said it, that he's pretty aware that he won't start the first few games, but Núñez has already showed that he's going to start next game. Would you guys agree with that?
He's a Bambi.
He's a Bambi, but he gets goals.
That was the luckiest goal and the luckiest assist he will get all season. No other defense is going to pass it to him into the back of his ankle to score a goal.
But you
Mate,
take
hold on. Time out. If that was Harry Kane, you're calling that the goal of the season. Give him the goal of the season award. So let's just calm down. It was a good finish. It was a good finish. Hey, you stuck your foot out, you flicked it in, it went in. It's a good finish. You got to give him credit.
He's a Bambi. That's all I'm going
to
say.
Take him, especially being your Premier League debut. You need to get off the mark somehow. And yes, he does look a bit uncoordinated at times, but who cares, I guess. Goal's a goal. And he helped him to get a valuable, I wouldn't say a valuable point, but a much needed point at least. But yeah, Fulham, credit to him. I think do we all have him going down? I don't think anybody had him staying up, right? I can't quite remember.
I had him staying up.
Oh, you had him staying up? Well, there you go. You know more than us with regards to Fulham, mate, because they did show something. And if they perform like that, then there's no reason why they can't stay up. Is this a shock result for you guys? It reads Bournemouth 2, Villa 0. I think we all have Bournemouth finishing bottom, if not getting relegated for sure. I can assure you of that one. Villa, though, average right now.
Oh, I mean, if you look at the stats, they did dominate this game besides the scoreline. Obviously, they had about 65, 66% possession. They had almost double the shots. It's just that clinicalness when you go up top. And I know we spoke about it last year. They started bending in these goals when Coutinho and all that came in, but it's going to start drying up. Teams aren't fatigued. And I don't think Bournemouth stay up. I still don't think it's enough for them to stay up, but it's worrying signs if you're Mr. Gerrard and Aston Villa.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the stat, but I'm sure you have because I actually showed you guys. Steven Gerrard at Villa, 35% win record. Exact same as Gary Neville. Same games played at Valencia, 35%. We all know Gary Neville had an absolute stinker. Does Gerrard's form and record at Rangers make him an overachiever currently? Like, if this is his first managerial position, he'd probably get the sack already. Would you not agree?
I don't think you'd get the sack. I think it's the aura that he has around him of his, he's playing same as Lampard. He has this aura that a great player, that he can transform into a great manager. But I think, it's still too early to sack him. It's way too early. He's only been there for half a season, just starting now. He's got his new players in. I think he's just got to give him a bit more time to gel, and then hopefully they kick on.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. He did take over from Dean Smith and I suppose got him to safety because they were relegation threatened at the time. So he's boosted them. But I think if this form doesn't turn around, if he doesn't start well, it's going to be worrying signs for Villa because they are a club of pretty big stature and they won't take, I wouldn't say bottom half finish, they wouldn't take anything less than, I'm going to go as far as saying 13th these days. I think they've got pretty high hopes. So if they're anywhere below that, I think that it's not been the best season for them, especially with Stevie G, especially when he's managed to get players like Coutinho and stuff to the club. I mean, they signed Diego Carlos, for example, who's a Sevilla player. Like, what did they finish last year? Could be a Champions League, at least Europa League player who, could have gone to a big club. So with those kind of players, I think at least 12th, 13th needs to be.
I got my first big prediction, Aaron. Got my first big prediction. I'll chuck it out there.
Hit me with
He's
it.
He's not there post World Cup. I think he's gone before the end of the World Cup. I think he cops the sack and he's gone before the World Cup comes back.
So he's gone by Christmas.
He's gone by Christmas.
What happens then? Where's he go?
Oh, I mean, go back to Rangers. Obviously, we've seen that he's not 100% cut out. We saw the same thing with Frankie Lampard. Go back into the Championship, go back into those lower leagues, earn your belt, then you can come back up. But it's a bit too early to get him up there right now.
Everybody's saying he's the Jurgen Klopp predecessor or whatever you want to call it. Is he?
Get him over there now. Get him there now.
Well, we can see that Jurgen's staying put for a number of years now. I think he's signed a new contract, so he won't be going anywhere anytime soon. Campo, do you agree with that though, or do you think he will see out the season?
I think he sees out the season. I have a different manager that I think will be sacked first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm agreeing with you now. I think I'll say mine in a little bit as well. But before that, let's get into Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest. Another 2-0 result here. Newcastle, they're in some form on Eddie Howe. I mean, translating from last season into this season, they're looking so strong. Campo, talk to us about Newcastle.
As you just said, they're looking very strong. Eddie Howe, I've always been a fan of him. The way he played at Bournemouth, the attacking style he wanted to play. He gets his chance again at a bigger club, gets backed, and the style of football they're playing is just incredible. He's transformed Joel Linton as a striker into a really good centre mid. He runs that midfield. He nearly had could have had a goal of the season after he ran through half the squad and just put it wide. But again, an unlikely goal scorer in Fabian Schär from outside the box. Absolute worldly. I just don't have enough praise for Eddie Howe and Newcastle at the moment. They're just on the up.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. I think they're the 6th best team since Eddie Howe took over in the Premier League. So, I mean, they're above United, for example. We know how bad they've been, but they're only just below Chelsea as well. Sorry, mate. They're going to keep firing, but they're only just below Chelsea. They're above, I believe they're above, just below Arsenal. But yeah, they're looking amazing. Nottingham Forest, however, I had them as my team to stay up from the teams that came up. I do think, I mean, it's an early call, but I do think they possibly can go straight back down because, I mean, they have signed quite a lot of players, spent a lot of money, but it might be the same as Fulham from a few years ago, where it's just you're signing too much. You should have stuck with the core of your squad, which was, the players that brought you into the Premier League. But yeah, Newcastle, praise them as much as possible because, yes, they've spent a lot of money, but Eddie Howe's worked magic there. The players that he brought in, Kieran Trippier, for example, is not a world-class player. He's a very good player, but he's not world-class. And he brought him in and he changed the season last year. Bruno Guimaraes, I don't know, is he world-class yet? But he's fantastic. And like you said, Joelinton, who is a striker, who is absolutely terrible at striker, he somehow just the masterstroke to bring into midfield, and all of a sudden he's bloody. I mean, I can say he's a world-class midfielder at this time. I mean, things like that earns your manager stripes, I think. And Tony, you're a manager yourself. How much praise can you give for Eddie Howe?
Oh, man, he's been absolutely brilliant since he's taken over. We all sat here and said, who's the big name coach they're going to go for? Are they going to go for Zidane? Are they going to go for Poch if he's free? They went for Eddie Howe, and we all sat here and went, what the fuck is that? Obviously, he's come in, he's made those signings. He hasn't gone out and absolutely broken the bank. He's got out, he's gone, we need a midfielder. We'll bring in Bruno. We need a right back. We'll bring in Trippier. Like, he's done it the right way. He's bought the positions he needs. And, mate, they could be a push for Champions League. I know it's an early call, but they could be a push for Champions League if they continue to form from last year into this season.
Yeah, spot on about managers. I mean, I think even when Eddie Howe, got the job, he said it's only the stepping stone. You might only be there for a year or two, and then they'll move on to someone better. He won't do a bad job, but they'll move on to someone better. He's just signed a long-term contract with them, whether that is seen out. But they're trusting him. It seems like the board's happy with him. The owners are happy with him. And yes, this game was only Forest, but they dominated them from start to finish, off the park. St James's Park went wild for him. Fabian Schär scored a screamer. Like you said, Campo, Joelinton could have scored a screamer himself. And yeah, it's looking good for Newcastle, and the top half finishes. It could be well within their sights this season. I mean, it's early, but it could definitely happen. And Tony, I mean, you saying top four, I'm not going to stretch that far, but yeah, European football, could well be on the cards for Newcastle. It would be a bloody good sight to see. But Campo, let's get into this one. Spurs 4, Southampton 1. You couldn't have started any better. You're sitting top of the league. How are you feeling?
Very good. It was actually a very complete performance. We got hit on the counter attack once, and James Ward-Prowse, what a finish. He's just so good at that club. He runs that midfield. His technique is excellent. He's someone like Newcastle, I think, would just benefit from having a James Ward-Prowse in that team. But then again, as soon as that goal happened, you could just see they went into another gear, Spurs. They just started pressing, pushing, overlapping. It's just Kulusevski. Man, I've never been more happy that Liverpool signed Diaz in my life, because that he is just incredible. He changed the game on its head. Just this Conte pre-season has just the players look fit, and they just seem to outwork Southampton, and they just couldn't keep up in the end.
What is it, 8 signings now you've made?
7.
Yeah, I can agree with you. Kulusevski from last season, obviously, that was made permanent, wasn't it, this window? Or was it previous window? What a signing.
Option. It's an obligation to buy, but that's next year, I think.
I mean, it's going to happen, that's for sure. He's underrated as hell. I think he has the most assists since his debut in the Prem. And he's just been, a revelation for you guys, something you just always needed. And it's crazy because you went from a player like Eric Lamela, for example, or even a Steven Bergwijn, who's not as consistent as Kulusevski's been. He started so hot for you guys. And to add him into the mix of Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, who are already unbelievable players, I mean, it shows that you've gone that one step extra. And, I mean, you pipped Arsenal to Champions League football last season because of a player like Kulusevski. So it's a strong start for you guys. This game, obviously, Ward-Prowse scored a bloody beauty. And you said he can go to a team like Newcastle. I don't see him going to a team unless it's a City or a team of massive stature. Because I think he would see it as a kind of a sideways move, even though Newcastle are definitely above Southampton at this point.
What if they get European football, but
maybe next season? Then yes, because they're a club who currently I'd say is bigger than Southampton. But right now, I think he is the captain of Southampton. It will take a lot to lure him away. Tony, what were your thoughts on this performance from Spurs?
Oh, I mean, it was a good performance. Again, we just spoke about Newcastle and playing Forest. And again, I had them a bit higher, but we didn't have Southampton that high on the table. So you have to take the good with the bad. Obviously, Tottenham were brilliant. They looked threatening. They looked attacking. Again, we're not going to know the extent of Tottenham until they come up against a big team, because we've seen this last year from Tottenham. They'll go out and beat City, and then they'll somehow lose twice to United. So it's a hard one to tell. But obviously on Prowse, we talk about maybe a Newcastle move. Does he get a look in with Joel Linton and Bruno playing in that midfield?
Yeah, it could be the right player at the wrong time. Exactly right. They probably don't need him at this point. So a team like that, yeah, doesn't benefit from him. But I mean, I think he makes most teams in the Premier League. He can comfortably start in most teams. I mean, phenomenal talent. And I'm a big fan of. Well, there you go. Yeah, you guys definitely need him. That's for sure. I'm a big fan of Ralph Hasenhuttl there. I think that when he gets it spot on, he's a bloody good manager. But it has shown that he kind of doesn't change his system enough, and sometimes it can be his downfall. We've seen him lose, 9-0 to you guys, Tony, in the past. Leicester, the same scoreline. That pretty big scorelines that most managers probably, if you told me, Tuchel's lost 9-0, he's getting the sack. I know Chelsea's obviously a bigger club, but most managers don't suffer a 9-0 defeat in their tenure twice and still have the job. But credit to him because he's done well with them. But yeah, it could be a long season for them.
A quick mention to that Southampton goalkeeper. He came from Man City, and this game could have been 8-9-0. The amount of chances we had, but he made some absolutely incredible saves. So just hats off to him. In the 4-1 loss, he was incredible.
I saw a lot of people giving praise as well to that midfielder, Lavia. I think he also came from City in the youth in the academy as well. And apparently he was quite good for Southampton as well. So, again, Prowse probably does need a bit of help in the midfield. So, another day, maybe they would have got something. But you guys definitely are strong right now, and it's scary for the league. Tony, we'll start you off with this game. It's one of your arch rivals, Leeds, 2-1 win, come from behind win against Wolves.
I think this was a pretty even game, and I think most of us saw that going that way when the game started. Obviously, Wolves were always going to have possession here. Leeds hate possession. We've seen that year on, year out. They'll attack, they'll throw the bus, and then they'll try and set up shop and defend. And if you look at where they've improved from last year under Marshy, the defense looked 10 times better. Yes, they conceded early, okay, but they were able to then hold him out for what? When the goal went in, it was in the 6th minute. They were able to hold him out for another 85 minutes. Obviously, the first goal, I've never seen a scrappier goal scored by Leeds, but you know what? When it goes in that corner, I don't think anyone really cared. So obviously they take that, and then Bamford, powerful, strong, whips the ball across goal. It did go down as an own goal, so I feel sorry for the bloke on debut. But I mean, hey, a win to open up the season when you just survived last year is a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think an opening day is always going to be tough because you never know what to expect. But to cop a goal 6 minutes in, I mean, it just completely changes everything. But I think because this was at Ellen Road, Leeds came from behind. I think if this goal had gone in and it was at the Molineux, the Leeds probably wouldn't have got a result out of this game. And I think that's Leeds. What is it? It's their 12th man. It always will be their 12th man. They have a massive fan base, and Ellen Road goes crazy. It's similar to, how Everton avoided relegation last season when Goodison Park kind of just got around them for those final few games. Just clubs that have that crazy fan base inside the stadium really helps the team, really motivates the team. And yeah, Jesse Marsh has improved them for sure. Defensively, he signed a few players. I think it's impressive that one of his players that he did sign got on the score sheet, because that's always important to kind of prove that, yes, this was the right signing. I mean, it's early, but he looks good. So credit to Leeds. And yeah, I had him finishing a bit higher this season. I think I had him in about 10th. So it's a step in the right direction, and they'll take it, especially in their bid probably to just avoid relegation again, just to kind of set up shop in the Premier League, because it would be, their 3rd season in a row if they can avoid relegation. So that's massive.
Getting relegated. Benny Coppett, they're getting relegated. They're going down.
Well, speaking of relegated, I mean, it wasn't to be last season for Everton. They managed to avoid it, but they only just narrowly avoided the defeat again this weekend, against Chelsea. We didn't look amazing, and I've got in my notes that I think that it's going to take us a little while to kind of find our rhythm. But those 3 signings that we made, Cucurella, who come in, he only had 1 or 2 training sessions. He came in off the bench this week, looks great. Phenomenal. Koulibaly hasn't missed a beat. I mean, Campo, I know you've said he's getting on, he's a bit old and things like that, but he looked fantastic. And then obviously Raheem Sterling, he just looks like a Chelsea player in my opinion. I think he's the player that we needed. He's the Timo Werner, but with maybe a little bit more end product. He's better than Pulisic. He's better than Zayed. I think he's just the perfect winger at this stage, especially when we lack that number 9. Campo, what are your thoughts?
I think you should have put him to the sword. They started with Anthony Gordon up top. They're lacking a real depth of quality at Everton at the moment. And it came from a very soft penalty. It was a penalty. He had his both hands on him, but I don't think Chilwell was actually looking for the shot. He just felt contact and dropped.
Does it matter though? When you drag to the ground like that?
I don't think he was dragged. I think it was soft. I think that was the difference. It was just a soft penalty. So you'll take the win. I just don't think I wouldn't be confident, and that's why I think Tuchel will be sacked first.
That's your prediction? I think that, honestly speaking, I think he's probably got one of the safer jobs in the league because the new manager, the new owners, I think will want to. I don't think they want to upset the fans. I think they want to kind of make sure that everything's a bit safe, and I think that even if times were a bit rough for us for a little while, I think he'd still have a job as long as humanly possible. Similar to Lampard, because I think Lampard did overstay his welcome a little bit, unfortunately. So I think Tuchel does have a pretty safe job, but that's a big call from you.
Time will tell.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I do think that we'll start a bit slower. And just to get a win opening day at Goodison Park, who we hadn't won at for, I think it's something ridiculous, like 8 seasons. I mean, it's a big win against Lampard as well. He did his last season at Goodison, which helped them avoid relegation. So it's not pretty, but a win's a win. You take it. And, I mean, we're going into a game against you guys this weekend, and that's a scary one. Had we started with a loss, I'd be a little worried. I'm still pretty worried now, but I'd be a little, I'd be pretty nervous. Tony, what were your thoughts on this one?
Life, death, and Chelsea getting a penalty when they're 0-0 against the bottom lower team. Like you said, you should have put in...
I do think that's like our 3rd or 4th year in a row opening day that Jorginho scored. So,
I mean, hey, if he could score a penalty, I'd be looking forward to the World Cup a lot more. Obviously, he wanted to wait till he was in white before he put it away. But I wouldn't be overly psyched up if I was a Chelsea fan. Obviously, the new signings did look good, but it's just a little bit of jelly that's mixing in that squad. So, yes, they dominated. Yes, they deserved the win, but this will be a good test this week because obviously Spurs are going to throw the bus at you. We'll get to see how those new signings do go in that defensive line, but good win nonetheless. And fuck Jorginho for missing penalties for Italy.
When you say throw the bus at us, do you mean like they're going to park the bus or they're going to throw everything at us? Because we've heard the bus.
They're going to throw the bus, the kitchen sink, Kane, Son, everybody's coming forward. They're going to attack that defense. They're going to try and tear it apart.
Yeah, I can agree. And there's a bit more on the line given that Conte is there now. I don't think – did we guys play you when Conte was there?
Yeah, we had that semi-final in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, so I've played you once. But, yeah, there's always that extra bit of motivation, I think, for a manager who was sacked from a club to go and get one over his former club. It's a massive game at the weekend. I do think, though, Armando Broja, I'd like to see him get a bit more game time. I think it's hard to displace Havertz even when he's not playing great because I think Tuchel does have some sort of bit of love for Havertz regardless of how he's playing. But I'd like to see Broja because I do think he's the closest we'll get to a number 9 for quite some time. But also speaking, I mean, it's pretty much all but done. Timo Werner's leaving the club, unfortunately. I mean, I think. Look, he wasn't the goal scoring phenomenon that we hoped, but he gave his all for the club. He won a Champions League. He was a hardworking servant. So credit to him. He's gone back to Leipzig. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes and bags 30 goals this year in the German Bundesliga. And I mean, it just wouldn't surprise me.
And you're signing for 100 mil next year.
Do you guys think that's a good decision on Chelsea's end, or will they live to rue that?
See, Werner's a funny one. He can't shoot to save his life, but he can make such damaging runs. He's got so much pace, and he can open up a game. I don't think you should have sold him because he is a good player. But 20 mil is cheap for a player of what he can produce if he's on.
Yeah. Tony?
I think he loses a lot of depth up front, like Campo said. He makes brilliant runs. off the bench is an absolute nightmare running against poor defenses. All you got to do is say, make that run. Don't shoot. Just tap it across goal. We've all done it in pro clubs. We've all done it on FIFA. Werner, no shooting. Just get in goal. Maybe pass it. It might go in. Maybe he'll miss the pass and it'll go in the back of the net. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I think obviously getting rid of Lukaku, getting rid of Werner, the World Cup, the fixtures in the Champions League and all that, you guys are going to struggle with depth come the end of the year.
Yeah, it could definitely happen. And that's why I think a player like Broja, it looks like he'll stay now because he was rumoured on the way out as well, or at least a loan, is massive. And if he can get some goals for us, then great, because Havertz up top isn't the most prolific goal scorer. And we definitely need a few outlets, that's for sure. Let's speak about the club that I do think the first manager will get sacked by. It's Leicester City. I think that if Brendan Rodgers continues this, he's gone. I don't know how soon, but he's gone at some point this season. Leicester 2, Brentford 2. They were 2-0 up, and Brentford got them back to 2-2. Tony, what were your thoughts on this one?
Oh, man, obviously, we'll get into it very soon. I was quite depressed throughout this game because United were playing at the exact same time. But when I saw the first goal go in, the second goal go in, I thought, oh, Brentford's done. Leicester will run away this. And I was quite shocked because, again, we didn't have Leicester that high on the ladder, and I had Brentford in the mix to stay up. But obviously, Ivan Toney, United were in talks for him. Man, we could have used him on the weekend, so we had a striker up top. But good fight back for Brentford. But just like last year, that's what this game was built on. That's what this club's built on. Whether they're playing City, whether they're up 2-0, down 2-0, they just fight to the final whistle, and they got a great result here.
Yeah, I mean, 2-0 down, you're thinking, yep, Brentford's done. This is Leicester's 3 points. Maybe Leicester's proved us all wrong, because I think a lot of people have them finishing quite low and having a rough season. But no, they look good. And then, yep, you look at the full-time score and you're like, okay, that's exactly what everybody thought would happen this year for Leicester. It's going to be tough. Brentford, though, like you said, Tony, Ivan Toney, I don't know how he's not gone to a bigger club, or how he didn't get signed, because you guys could have used him. I mean, we could use him. A lot of clubs would benefit from a player like Ivan Toney, who I think scored, I don't know, maybe 14 goals, 13 goals last season in a Brentford team that obviously finished, 15th, 16th. So that's great for a striker of his caliber in a struggling team. But yeah, I think they're going to have a rough year this year, Brentford, even though they did fight back from 2-0 down. But yeah, Leicester as well, I think, are in for a rough year, and especially if they lose any of the Maddison, Fofana, Tielemans, any of those three before the end of the window. I think Maddison will stay, but the other two, if they go, or one of them goes, Brendan Rodgers could be out the door pretty soon if he doesn't fix his form. Tony, we're going to get into your boys now. That was pretty quick on Leicester, but this one might be a little longer. You lost 2-1 at home at Old Trafford. Erik ten Hag's first game in charge, first Premier League game in charge. I can just say everything about it, but I want to hear your thoughts. What happened?
All I can say is, mate, the lot, sure, absolutely terrible. The lot, I had a lot of confidence going into the season, seeing how he played in that preseason, but, mate, he couldn't hold on to possession. Over to Maguire, I don't think he was at fault a lot during this game. His passing looked a bit better, but, mate, that back line, I don't know if we need to, shoot a few of them, get rid of them, but, I'd rather see Malacia start. You're going to have a young kid at Luke Shaw position. If he makes mistakes, you kind of cop it on the chin, but Martinez, solid as always, great signing. He's looking like the signing we need, but I'd almost want to see him partnered up with a Lindelof, someone back there who's a bit quicker. He's got the height on his side. We move into the midfield.
Lindelof isn't that tall, is he?
He's taller than Martinez. Martinez is almost smaller than me.
Yeah,
He's
but
about 5'8".
That's not saying much. He's about 5'2".
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, I'm about 5'2", so it's all right. I'll take that compliment. But obviously, moving into that midfield, McTominay and Fred, it didn't work. Obviously, we've said in the past, Life, Death, and Mac Fred. Well, I think it's about time we split them up because it looked quite terrible. I think McTominay only had about 8 completed passes in the time he was on the pitch. Bruno probably should have buried the ball early in that game, but other than that, he was quite quiet. Sancho, I didn't even know he was on the pitch for half the game. And then Rashford, same thing. But Eriksen, mate, the guy died a year ago, and he was our best player on the pitch. He died a year ago. He was dead at the Euros. He comes into United and he's the only player on that day that honestly deserved to be wearing that shirt. So it's scary times, but obviously we are in talks for Adrian Rabiot from Juventus.
What do you think of that? How have you gone from Frankie de Jong to Adrian Rabiot, who I think his stats were worse than McTominay's last year?
His stats are worse than McTominay's, but that's because McTominay's future captain. Leave him alone. But yeah, I mean, hey, at least they've realised that we need a midfielder. It's taken the Glazers 5 years. They've realised we need a midfielder. They haven't quite hit the mark, but I'm still quietly very, maybe like 10% confident that something happens with this De Jong deal. Obviously, with Barca not being able to register some of their signings. Mate, I'll take anyone that's available. Give us one of their midfielders.
I was going to say, why don't more clubs look at just English players like Tielemans? Well, not he's not English, but players in England like Tielemans would be great. But then you think Leicester would charge him 80, 90 mil for him because of the English tax and the way it works, and they're losing a player to another Premier League club. So, yeah, Tielemans, though, I think would be a great signing for you guys. Adrian Rabiot, I don't think is it. But there's got to be a lot of players out there that you could look for. Erik ten Hag surely has someone on his mind that maybe the Glazers aren't budging with because, well, I guess that probably is Frankie de Jong. He's worked with him before, and the Glazers just aren't paying. And I think that if you're United, right, the difference between paying 80 mil, sorry, what was it? What's the agreed fee with you guys? 60 mil, I think, was it, for you agreed to deal with him? I don't know. I don't know what's the issue. The wages, if he just doesn't want to go to United, which is surprising because he's worked with Ten Hag before. Maybe they didn't have a great relationship at Ajax.
Would you want to go to United after watching that game against Brighton? Let's be honest. He didn't want to go before. He doesn't want to go now.
But yeah, it's clear as day that you need midfielders. You need sparks. And yeah, like you said, Eriksen, best player on the pitch. And that just shows that someone out there wants to play. He wants to play for the club. He just wants to play football. I think some of those players there have just got it too comfortable. I think Luke Shaw, too comfortable. Harry Maguire, way too comfortable. I'd love to see Varane partnered with Lisandro Martinez because I think that's a bit of height and speed. But I don't know if Varane's...
You know what? Let's put Lindelof, Varane, and let's play Martinez at the number 6 role. Or put Lindelof at the number 6 role. Change it up a little bit because Fred and McTominay aren't it.
Well, mate, if that happens this season, I'm giving you the full credit, and I'm getting onto Ten Hag and saying, where's the credit for Tony? Because that could happen. It could be a masterstroke, that's for sure. But yeah, there's a few players that need to wake up. What's your thoughts, though, on Ronaldo starting the season on the bench? And do you think that if he did start, different result?
I mean, I've got no issue. As a fan, I'm back in Ten Hag. I've seen what he's done. I've seen what he's tried to implement. We've got to remember that Ronaldo obviously had that time off, whether it was for family reasons, forcing the move, whichever way you want to believe. Ten Hag said it after that game midweek. He wasn't fit. He wasn't ready to go. He needs a lot of more training. So, I mean, if Eriksen starts, scores a double, playing in a false 9, we're saying what an absolute genius Ten Hag is. Would Ronaldo have changed the game? Well, it's Ronaldo. Anything's possible, but I've got no issue with him starting on the bench. I just wish we started an actual striker at striker.
Campo, how do you see that one?
A funny game because you got to think Graham Potter lost Bissouma and Cucurella, these two best players, and they still came out in a good system, high intensity, and deserved a 2-0 lead at halftime.
Come on, mate. So they slapped us 4-0 last year. Can we just remember that? They slapped us in the final round of the season. We've improved. It's only 2-1 this game.
So full credit to Graham Potter. What a coach. But I think that whole United midfield to backline were just so poor. Personally, I would be playing Varane at the back with Maguire and putting Martinez in centre defensive mid because he has to be better than what they've got at the moment.
But are you picking Varane Campo based on his name, or are you picking him based on his performances? Because he's been poor since he's come to United. So you're picking this based on Madrid Varane, or are you picking this based on United? I'm picking on
these. It's Varane. He might have been shaky last year, but come on, he's world class at the end of the day, or he can be. So
what do you mean?
I think
that's Champions League Varane. We signed Conference League Varane. It's a different player.
You just,
His long lost brother or something.
I think you just got to just try something different because that midfield does not work.
I mean, there's no better time to try it than now. It's the start of the season. It's a new manager. It's just going to look like it's just his implement on the team rather than just Ole's panic, doing the panic signings or things like that. So it's not going to look bad on him. I think if it works, it's great. If it doesn't work, then he can revert back and it doesn't look as bad. So
also on Ten Hag, I think the players he wanted early was Frankie de Jong, Anthony, and Martinez. He said that to the Glazers. He's only got one of them because Frankie didn't want to come and they did not want to pay 100 mil for Anthony.
Which, I don't know, I can understand why you wouldn't want to pay that much for him. I think he's a fantastic player, but that's Eredivisie Anthony. I'd love to see him in the Prem. And he could be as bad as Diallo or bloody Gineppo or whatever from Southampton if he comes to the Prem. Like, you don't know when these players come to the Prem. And I think he's very talented, he's very skillful, similar to like a Neymar. I think a player like that could even be scared of coming to the Prem because of how physical it is. But yeah, I can understand why they wouldn't pay 100 mil for him, but Frankie de Jong should have been over the line. He's got Martinez, and it just shows that he's Ajax. He wanted players from Ajax or has that connection. It makes sense. Holland, Ajax, it makes sense that you want to bring players and you're familiar with. But yeah, I can agree with you. I think it's the Glazers versus Ten Hag, even though they should be backing him because he's the new manager and he's supposed to be that kind of finally the one that they get it after Sir Alex. Tony, final thoughts on that game before we wrap into the final game of the season, which is final game of the round, hopefully not the season. But yeah, which is pretty big as well.
Finish the season.
Of course, you'd be saying that.
It can't get much worse. I could come back to bite me, but I guess the only way's up after opening game loss at Old Trafford.
Yeah, you are 13th. There's still 7 other positions below you. You can get worse.
Mate, I've seen Nottingham Forest play. We don't have the worst midfield in the Premier League, so that's all right. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Garner have a crack. Obviously, he was good for Nottingham last year. So, yeah, like I said, we've got, I wouldn't say an easier game because I thought this week was easy, but we do have Brentford. And then we go into, obviously, that clash with Liverpool. So, we'll see how we go.
All right, let's get into the game. It's West Ham 2, Erling Haaland. West Ham 0, Erling Haaland 2. What a boss! What a start to the Premier League for him. Campo, I mean, he's a world-class talent, and I think he's just shown that the Premier League doesn't scare him. The Premier League doesn't faze him. He can do it wherever.
Well, no striker is going to be phased if you're playing for Manchester City. Come on, he's a cracking player.
He gets 20 plus.
Don't get me wrong. He's just gonna. I'd score 10. No cap. Just put me, including pens. But fair enough. He scored the penalty, and the balls he is going to receive it from that Manchester midfield. He's going to score them all day. And they made a top 6 team from last year look so average. They battered them all game, dominated from start to finish, and this could have been 3-4-0.
Yeah, this is a team that caused them a lot of trouble towards the end of last season and actually made their title race a bit more exciting because they took points off them after going 2-0 up. Tony, HAALAND, I mean, he's playing for the other Manchester team, but boy, is he a striker that you could have used.
Oh, man, he's a great striker. But like Campo said, you put any of us, mate, you put you in that team, you might be offside a few times, but you'll probably score a few goals. So,
I think if you put me in any Premier League team, I'm scoring a few goals.
Man, if I put you in Nottingham Forest, you're not even getting the ball at striker. So just calm down a little bit there, all right? But, I mean, again, they've dominated West Ham. They still only had 2 shots on target, one being a penalty, both goals. So, yes, they dominated, but are we going to start to see a City that are ruthless and can put this ball in the back of the net? Like, you had 14 shots, you only had 2 on target. You got away with it against a very, very, I guess you could say, poor West Ham, where they made West Ham look poor, but you come up against the Liverpool, you come up against the Chelsea, you come up against an Arsenal, Spurs, all those big boys up the top. And yes, I didn't mention United because I'm not putting us in that film, but are 2 shots on target enough to win you the Premier League every week? Probably not.
Yeah, no, I think it might. I don't know if it's an off day for them because they still won. They still scored 2 goals. But yeah, like you said, they do need to get a few more on target, but that could have been just the day. it just impresses me to see Haaland making those runs already. And it impresses me actually more to see the City players giving him the ball from those runs, because I think there's players like that who have come to other clubs, Chelsea as well, who you see them make the runs and they don't get the ball. And it just shows there's no link up there. Whereas De Bruyne, he's world class and he sees Haaland no matter what. I mean, Gundogan saw him for the penalty as well. Like, these strikers need the ball how they want to play. And he's already been getting that, and it's been bloody one game in the Premier League.
Well, I think what benefits Haaland, especially in this Manchester City system, is Gabriel Jesus didn't stay. Like, you look at obviously Nunes at Liverpool, you've got Bobby Firmino ahead of him. Right now, Jesus gone, he is a starting striker. They didn't have a starting striker last year. So all of this preseason would have been built into how can we get Haaland the ball? How can we let him score? So I think that benefits him a lot more than this Man City midfield. It's having no other striker last year benefits him a lot.
Yeah, well, they signed Julian Alvarez alongside, but he's staying. But yeah, like you said, he's not going to start over Haaland. He's going to play for a fair few minutes, I would assume, across all comps. But it's just interesting to see City with a number 9 like this, because even Aguero was a bit more build-up, whereas I think Haaland's so direct, and City are still going to build the ball up, but the way Haaland plays is play me behind or give me the ball early and let me finish it off. But yeah, they're scary. I had Harry Kane before the season started as golden boot, but I'm already changing that. Like, what I've seen, the proof is in the pudding. He's going to get 25 at least this season, especially if he's taking pens every week for them, because they needed the pen taker and they needed someone who can score pens. So early Haaland.
Who hit 25 last, Aaron? That's a big call, 25 goals. That hasn't been reached very often.
Yeah, it's going to happen though. You watch, man. You watch. But yeah, I don't know. I just think he's already shown that he's not scared of the Premier League. And yes, it's City, and yes, he's playing for the best team in the league, but you still got to score goals, and he's doing it. So, Campo, what do you reckon? Final thoughts?
Kane's going to score 30.
He can. He's done it before. I don't know how many. What's his most? Is his most 28, 29, or is he above 30 once or twice?
No, I don't think he's above 30 in the Prem. But we'll make City our bitch again.
I mean, yeah, you're the bogey team, that's for sure. All right, let's wrap this up. Long one. Thanks for joining me, lads. Hopefully we can get Morty next week. I think we should be able to when we lock in a time and a date. But yeah.
Once he's done crying.
Match week 2 will be happening on the weekend. We've got Spurs v Chelsea. Tony, hopefully you guys get a win. Kickstart that Ten Hag arrival. And yeah, we'll see you again in a week's time. Thanks for joining me, lads. See you soon.
Peace.